But I do want to talk about the Cesaro thing. So we were talking about before the show went live about how Cesaro, and it was one of the first things they talked about in that Stone Cold, who has been an avid fan of Cesaro since the start of the year. I've been listening to his podcast for like the last year now, and he's always talked about how he's a big fan of Cesaro. He's missing a few things, and even he himself has noticed that how great he was getting over earlier this year. Jeff, like the day after WrestleMania, when you and I were talking about when the streak ended and stuff like that, you said, "I'm a Cesaro fan now." After he won that Battle Royale, remember that?
Not now.
You're not now. Yeah, exactly. The casual fan is not going to be a fan of Cesaro after poorly booked he's been. But nevertheless, though, even he himself realized or talked about how, he was on fire earlier this year with Paul Heyman and the WrestleMania win as a babyface. Why didn't you turn him? Like, they were using all the insider terms, too, which I thought was great. Like, they weren't dumbing it down for us, which I thought was amazing.
Yeah.
But I'll ask you, Clark, first. What were your thoughts on Vince saying that Cesaro doesn't have it? Do you agree with that? And how else do you think Cesaro is going to make it here in WWE?
It's a little 50-50 for me because he connects well with the fans. I mean, the swing, that just gets fans up on their feet. And, after counting, 20, 22 swings or something like that, that gets the crowd really on fire. But, yeah, like Vince said last night, his verbal skills need a little bit of work. He's charismatic in the ring. I disagree with Vince on that one. But, yeah, I can see him improving a little bit more. But one day I can just see him being a world champion. And, that's just, I'm not going to ever quit being on the Cesaro bandwagon because I'm a huge fan of the guy. He does have it in my eyes, but to management and to Vince, he doesn't have it yet. But that's just what I have to say about it.
No, I think all the best workers in WWE history have all been at one point in time underutilized or not used to their full potential. Like Daniel Bryan early on in his career really wasn't doing anything. Like he was U.S. champion for a while, but he was like a glorified mid-card guy, and people were saying, why aren't you doing more with him? Maybe they were saying the same thing about CM Punk years ago. I can't really speak for that, but guys like Cesaro, Dolph Ziggler, who we complain about all the time being buried here or there, was a sole survivor at Survivor Series. What that means for his future, I don't know, because really, he's been coming off well as a main event star in the last few weeks because he's been winning the main events of Raw, SmackDown, whatever. So only time will tell in terms of that goes. But yeah, I think Vince is right. I think he is lacking that kind of it thing. He does have charisma, like you said before. I think it's not only with Cesaro, I think it is more so with the booking. Like if they book him to win more, or maybe it's not as simple as that. I don't know, because they've just been, if you think about it, in 2014 alone, he's gotten, 20 title shots? He's lost every time. Show to the casual viewer, he's a loser. It's like as simple as that. Like if you make this guy lose X amount of times, he's going to be seen as a loser. Like with Sami Zayn, it's a little different. Like he's an underdog. Cesaro isn't that kind of guy. But I think in terms of Cesaro, it's just going to take time before people can kind of see him as a main event star. He's just got to pay his dues, pretty much. So, RJ, I want to get your thoughts on this too.
I think he kind of nailed it on the head, but to an extent, even if he has it all, that doesn't mean he's going to be at the top. I think Dolph Ziggler has the it factor. He has the in-ring skills, the mic skills, the charisma, but he's not WWE champion. So I feel like obviously,
even if he did have it,
exactly. I think obviously the booking does not help Cesaro. Obviously, like you said, a casual fan sees him losing, but obviously, Dean Ambrose hasn't won in so long, so that's obviously a little bit different. But I just think that if he was maybe won one of those title matches, it would have meant something. I think he should have won something. The whole Andre the Giant Memorial thing was just a big flop in the WWE. He just never had anything paid off from that. Just because he won that, then it should have been a title shot or something. I think he had so much momentum, and they just kind of killed it. And then after losing 20 title matches, you can't be really believable anymore.
Yeah. So I think it's a big problem with Cesaro right now, right? Like you said before, maybe if you told me, you go back to maybe 2011, maybe 2012, I'm not really sure. Dolph Ziggler, he's a great worker. Dolph Ziggler is a prime example of this. He's been in the WWE, not, counting his days, his Spirit Squad, whatever else.
Loved him in the Spirit Squad.
As Dolph Ziggler has been with the company for about 6 years now. But you go back to earlier in his reign and his tenure, he didn't have that it factor. He had all the in-ring skills. When he was with Vicky, he was great. I could see him as a world champion. Okay, yeah, sure, but he didn't have it. And he's gotten that it factor. He's got that crowd connection. People love the guy. He's one of the most over guys in the company with Daniel Bryan being out. So, yeah, I think it's just going to take time. Cesaro's been in WWE for like maybe 2.5 years. Like I said before, Ziggler's been here for 6. He's still a relatively young
longer
guy.
than that, too.
Oh, yeah, as Ziggler. Yeah, exactly. Like, almost close to a decade almost.
Yeah, he's been around for a while.
He was
Nick Nemeth as a caddy for Kerwin White for...
like 05, yeah. Before
and then he was
Eddie died.
Spirit Squad.
Yeah.
That's when they were kind of over. And then somehow out of him, he was the only one that got through them. I thought Kenny Dykstra was the next man.
I thought Kenny Dykstra was
He was the only one
good.
that kind of like shined out of the Spirit Squad. And some reason Ziggler came out. I don't know.
I don't know. He had that like douchey look, like Miz. I thought for the longest time I always thought he was like a Miz.
Dickhead look.
The whole gimmick I thought was very Miz-like. I don't know how they dropped the ball on that guy, but nevertheless, going back to what we were saying before, I think Cesaro is very much like Ziggler, and it's going to take time for him to pay his dues, stuff like that. So I thought that was really interesting.